Today's guest is the London-based schoolteacher Bobby Seagull. Bobby's known to many people in the UK for a star turn on the quiz show University Challenge.
This is their captain.
Hello, my name is Bobby Seagull. I'm from East Ham in the London Borough of Newham.
His initial moment in the spotlight has led to a part-time career in the media, fronting TV shows, and becoming something of a mathematics cheerleader. But there's much more to Bobby's story, which includes all sorts of fascinating twists and turns. It's not uncommon when I do these podcasts for the person I'm interviewing to send me a few kind of little briefing notes and a few things to look at just to help with my research. You sent me 6 pages of bullet points totaling 2,392 words. What does this say about you? What can I learn from you from this fact alone?
I think I'm someone that likes to be prepared. Again, I'm a school maths teacher.
Yeah.
I always tell my students, do your homework, do your research. But actually, partly I've had some negative experiences on podcasts and interviews where I've turned up for an interview, but they literally didn't know who I was. They're like, who are you? You're Bobby Seagull? Oh, we're going to talk about what? Physics, is it? No, maths. So obviously that's completely different. But I've got into sort of the habit of, for whether it's a podcast or a TV interview, giving them some notes about that might help them sort of assess my interest and background. But the only thing with this was, it was meant to be like a few bullet points, maybe 10 bullet points, but I got carried away. And it was actually quite nostalgic for me because during the process of writing it, I started asking my dad, oh, where's that old stamp collection? Where's that old magic set? I tried to find my brothers and I, we used to create a fantasy football prediction league in the mid-90s. So actually it was a road trip for me. So I'm sorry that you sort of saw my brain splurge on paper.
I found it fascinating though, reading all about you. And we can't possibly cover all these points you've got here, but
it was almost like a chance for me to reflect on my life. It was like, lockdown is there. We're sort of, term is approaching in a couple of weeks, normal school term. And it's a chance for me to take a step back and go, why do I really love maths? So actually, it's given me sort of a spring in my step. I am doing the right thing.
Bobby, you're a young fella. You shouldn't be reflecting on life already. So let's first deal with the elephant in the room, or the seagull in the room.
Seagull.
And that is your surname. Which I just thought, it's an unusual surname. People have unusual surnames. But reading your notes, there is quite a story behind it. The surname Seagull.
Yes, there is, Brady. So my family's surname, my dad's surname, is actually Jose, like the football manager, Jose Mourinho, because my family are originally from a state called Kerala in South India, and the language they speak there is Malayalam, which actually is cool because Malayalam is the longest proper noun, which is a palindrome. So it's Malayalam, saying backwards and forwards.
Hey, I was born in Glenelg, which is a palindrome.
Oh, so we could have the palindrome battle, like a palindrome rap battle.
Yeah.
So they were...
Yeah, okay.
They're from Kerala, and I think in the 1600s, the Portuguese came, converted people from, I think, presume ancestors would have been Hindu. So my family actually Roman Catholic, so hence the Jose. So by rights, if you believe in the multiverse theory, there's another Bobby Jose talking to Brady Harron. But in this particular universe that we occupy, Brady, it's Bobby Seagull.
Yeah. So why Seagull then? Jose's a perfectly serviceable surname. Bobby Jose's a pretty cool sounding name. How have you ended up Seagull?
To be honest, I'd be very happy with Jose, but my dad read a book growing up in the 70s called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And it was an inspirational, quite a short novella, a book you could get through maybe in an hour and a half max, by Richard Bach, an American author. And it's all about the life of a particular seagull called Jonathan Livingston. When we think of seagulls, you think of irritating birds that go and peck at you and eat fish and steal your chips, and they're just irritants. And in this book, the seagulls are no different. All they do is they eat to live to eat, very subsistence living.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Livingston, he thought, hey guys, I've got these set of wings, and he explored flying and soared to tremendous heights. A bit of metaphor on the book, and some people think it's a bit wishy-washy, 60s, 70s hippie culture rather.
Yeah.
But actually, he discovered a greater meaning and then tried to teach other seagulls that too. So my dad was so inspired. He thought actually he would love his kids to be educated and then help inspire others. So in a bizarre sort of way, like I've ended up becoming a teacher, and there's like that nominative determinism where my surname has influenced my sort of life mission of trying to inspire others. But yeah, it's a totally made up surname, but in Britain for birth certificates, you can put any surname you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could do anything, and they pick Seagull for me.
So, I know you've got 3 brothers. Are they all Seagulls as well, or have they all got random surnames? Or how did he... What happened?
The plot thickens. So I'm one of 4 boys.
Yeah.
So the first one... So let's put this. So my dad loved the idea of the Seagull as a surname and thought it's inspiring. My mom's like, Dad, it can be a middle name. It doesn't have to be a surname.
Yeah.
So brother 1, Davy, my dad wanted to put Seagull, but he had... My mom actually changed it last minute to Seagull being a middle name. So he's a Seagull middle name, and then Jose is his surname.
Okay.
Then number 2, me, I just have Seagull. So my dad won out.
Yeah. Right.
Then sibling number 3, John. Dad put Seagull. Mum came in last minute. So he's a Seagull middle name. Jose is a surname. And the last one, Thomas or Tommy. My dad won the day. So he's a Seagull. So we've got 2 Seagulls and 2 Seagull Joses. I mean, all biologically 100% from the same parents, but different surnames.
So it alternates. What do you think about that? Like, does that... I mean, obviously you're just used to it. Was it ever a pain in the backside growing up, or hard to explain, or it's just like, you know...
I'll tell you this, there have been perks and cons. The perks, like at school, primary school, I remember the dinner ladies, they would say, what's your name? You know, they'd have a little token, ready for you to join the queue. And I'd say, my name's Seagull. And they'd say, oh, that's a lovely name. Why don't you go to the front of the queue? So it definitely had perks, but then there were some negatives as well. I'm pretty certain, you know, your memory can sometimes mislead you, but I'm pretty certain I have a memory of us being 4, or me being 4 or 5, around that sort of age. And we went to an airport, and my mum's surname is Jose, and they saw me with my passport. It said Seagull, and they said, "Who is this? Your son?" And I said, "I don't know this lady." And I was like, "Do not!" Oh my god! And they had to separate us, and we had to wait for my uncle or someone to come pick us up at the airport, and it was a bit of a disaster. And I've learned not to play jokes with my mum because she was in tears. And it was all because I thought it'd be funny.
And you don't play jokes at airports
I know. A 4-year-old Bobby Seagull wasn't aware of that, but he is aware now.
Oh, wow. One last question about the seagull issue then.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about seagulls themselves now when you go to the seaside and you see them? Do you have a warmth and an affection towards them, or a resentment towards them? Because seagulls are very polarising animals.
The only thing is, as a school teacher, when my students see Mr. Seagull as a teacher, they're often, you know, the first day of term, they want to laugh. And I'll be like, I'll get it out all the way. I'll just say, hi, Mr. Seagull, cacao, cacao. Look, you can see my cousins in the playground. That's my uncle, that's my auntie. I get the first lesson. So I sort of get out all the seagull jokes out of the way with young people. Myself, like, yeah, I guess I've grown to not love seagulls, but I've grown to... Well, you're not indifferent. That's even an unfair word. Accept them. Accept that they'll always be part of my life in some shape or form.
Well, that was Bobby Seagull, people. Join us next week. No.
Bobby Jose next week. From the next dimension, another dimension.
So, tell me a little bit about childhood. I get the impression you 4 boys were pretty clever lads.
When people use the word clever, I always say that, of course, there's like a spectrum of talent, as it were, innate talent, but I think we become clever or not clever as well in sort of traditional terms by our upbringing, you know, by the stimulation in terms of reading, books, discussions, having people around you. And with my family, it was definitely a case of being around people that really were interested in things, and my dad in particular. So like one routine that we had, in fact, it's probably been the defining feature of me, is that every Saturday after lunch, so my mum would make a delicious South Indian lunch with biryani, some chicken, some yogurt, some Indian dessert. We'd go cart off to the library, all of us, obviously the number of us depending on when people are born, but eventually all of us would go to the library, and we'd sit there in a beautiful red bricked, I think it's an Edwardian building in East Ham called East Ham Library, not surprisingly, and sit there on that library floor, sprawled for hours, reading books on anything. And again, it could be like Mayan civilization, or it could be books on Victorian engineering marvels, or fiction of Roald Dahl. And we'd sit there for hours and hours reading books. And our dad occasionally say, oh, what are you reading? And we'd go and say, oh, I read just about the Aztecs and about their calendar and about their culture. And we'd have these discussions. And I think those Saturday afternoons, and again, having siblings there, and you're trying to outperform them and get cooler facts than them, that really made us who we were. So that, yeah, I owe a lot to East Ham Library for making me the person who I am.
Bobby, do you think your dad was being really strategic and thinking, if I do this, the boys are going to grow up, you know, smart and interested and curious? Or was that just him? That he just wanted to go to the library with the boys and read books?
I think it's a combination of both. One, it was nice for him to get out of the house to go and sit there, read the newspapers. But secondly, I think, again, my parents came from Kerala. Like many people in India at that sort of time, not a great deal of wealth. But coming to Britain, he was very grateful for the fact that it's a country that offered people a chance to lift themselves from, not necessarily poverty, but we grew up in a council estate, really challenging council estate in East London. And a lot of students, in fact, like some of my peers that I saw there, the next time I saw them heard about them was in a newspaper. Lad XYZ in for grievous bodily harm. Like, okay, that was you I used to play with. I grew up in a challenging council estate. And my dad saw the library reading as a chance for us to see a wider world. When you're growing up in a difficult place, you're surrounded by kids that maybe from backgrounds where education isn't valued, it can be easy to fall into those traps. And again, when I was 4 or 5, about age of 4 to 6, I'm pretty certain I was part of a gang without realising it. These little kids go around on bicycles, causing mischief, and I'll be like the lookout guy, not knowing what I was doing. Had my dad not been interested in taking me to the library, there's another Bobby out there that's now causing mischief and mayhem, perhaps in and out of jail. I don't think so. I don't think that would be the case. But I'm just saying...
That's Bobby Jose.
That's Bobby Jose. He's out there. I've cut ties with him, changed identity to not be associated. But yeah, I'm a big believer that obviously there's the element of the nature, but nurture is so much a bigger factor for me.
Bobby, what did your father do? How did he earn money himself?
So professionally, he qualified as a chartered accountant in India. But when he moved from India to Britain, like late 70s, early 80s, back then, qualifications weren't really transferable. So you turn up for a job in Britain and you say, oh, I'm a chartered accountant. In an Indian accent, you would say that. And they'd say, no, you're from India. We can't accept the qualification. So he had to start from scratch as well. So he moved into IT, programming. Hence, like myself and my older brother in particular, when we were young, we were very much into coding and programming. But that was my dad's. He had to retrain himself from scratch to be a programmer, because that was a profession or an area that was growing, in the late 80s, early 90s. It didn't have much of a field, but it was developing, and it's something that he could sort of start from scratch, and they didn't really discriminate. Like if you were from a good university, it didn't make a difference.
Now, from the tome you sent me of notes that I was reading earlier, obviously there were 4 brothers. You're the second oldest. I got the impression it's your older brother Davey that you were particularly close to and sort of intertwines with your life more than the others, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment in terms of our ages are quite different. So Davey right now is age 40. I'm 6 squared, 36, and John is 30, then Tom is 26. It's a 14-year age gap between the youngest and oldest. So Davey and I were 3 school years apart. So we grew up together. And again, Davey's story is, people probably should know the story before I explain. So Davey it's tragic. He was involved in a car accident when he was age 2.5. So was physically confined to a wheelchair for the first, I think, till about age 14, 15, he went to a special school. And back then in the UK, they weren't very enlightened about the approach to students with physical disabilities. They assumed if you're physically disabled, then you've got no academic or mental faculty. So he was with students from, people with Down syndrome, other sort of conditions that prevented them from academically flourishing. But Davey's issue was he had a physical handicap, but not a mental issue, as it were. But so for many years, his only sort of enrichment was with me at home or my dad in the library. But in school, they were literally just like, can you move your hand? Can you move your legs?
Right.
So growing up with him, it was a strip. It's normally, your elder brother, your big brother, someone that you look up to in terms they're bigger, they're stronger, they're smarter. But with him, it was different because while he's innately, if you can use the word, innately smarter than me. But when I was young, I couldn't really tell that because his numeracy skills, his reasoning skills, his writing skills weren't as good as mine. So I thought, I'm smarter than my older brother who's 3 years older than me, without me understanding the wider circumstances of that.
So what was that like, having an older brother who obviously, it sounded like he would have needed also a lot of, care and stuff like that. Did having a brother in that situation affect your life very much, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's, from a young age, it's made me more empathetic because you're always having to consider other people. Because normally if you've got siblings, you're like, they'll sort themselves out. Whereas with Davey, you need to make sure, do you have enough water? Do you want me to adjust your chair? Do you want me to get you a book? So again, Davey he absolutely loved computer programs. We had a BBC Micro and he'd be sitting there programming constantly in front of the computer. But there'll be times where, the TV would switch off. I need to plug things back in. So you need to constantly ask someone, are they okay physically? Do they need different things? So that sort of having to ask someone constantly if they're okay makes you more empathetic, makes you more aware of people. But again, because he's physically confined, it meant that Davy's mind became imaginative. So my dad would give us lots of activities to do. So we'd draw, we'd play chess, we'd learn about the stars. Again, we did some programming, we did mathematics. In fact, although at a young stage, it was a case of with Davy and I in particular. Again, he's the person that I'll chat to first for discussing ideas. We had such a breadth of things that we did together, including the trashy stuff like watching TV, Neighbours. Oh my God, can I ask you, are you a Neighbours or Home and Away person?
I'm neither, but back in the day, I probably would have been in the Home and Away camp. These are two Australian television soap operas people that captivated Britain, Neighbours and Home and Away. And you're either a Neighbours person or a Home and Away person, it seems.
Can I just put it out there? I am a Neighbours person, so I'd watch Neighbours. I think I'd watch it twice. I'd watch it, if I was at home, I'd watch the 1:30 and then I'd watch the 5:30 repeat. And in Britain, it was like, it is one of the biggest cultural phenomenon. Like, I still can't explain to this day why an Aussie soap opera has such a deep connection with the Brits. But everyone, so my family used to watch, so Davey and I used to watch sort of stuff like that. And to be honest, what do I remember from it? Very little. But it was a big part of my childhood with Davey. Again, we just did so many different things, like, the chess, watching sports, drawing. And the annoying thing for me was, very quickly, I'd realise that anything we did, Davey very quickly pick it up and be better than me. And I realised, actually, this guy, there's something called innate smarts. And I not that I was unsmart, but I think Davey's definitely got a little edge on me on that field.
What were you like? Obviously, it sounds like you were incredibly bright and, curious and, being encouraged by your father. What were you wanting to do? What were your ambitions? What did you want to be when you grew up?
So it changes as my life progressed. But when I was young, when I was 5 or 6, and this still cracks me up because I can't imagine either of these two now, but it was genuinely either to be a chess player or a cosmonaut. One of those two. Right. And I say specifically cosmonaut rather than astronaut because our dad, from Kerala, the state in southwest India, is interesting because it's a state that I think it's the only state that's functionally 100% has a literacy rate in India, which is, again, India's got various standards of education, but Kerala, they've got no natural resources, so education is very important. But they also have, again, I think it's more socialist, but a party called the Communist Party that ostensibly wins election or wins power every 5 years, and the next party comes in. So it's always had a strong sort of inverted communist root. So there are lots of books from the old Soviet Union. So growing up, we had fiction books, obviously the Western fiction books, but we had lots of books from Russia, Ukraine, Belarus. And again, as part of that, you had to love space, astronomy. We had lots of books on astronomy, and we had lots of books on chess. So my brother and I used to play chess all the time, used to look at the stars, and I was convinced I want to be a cosmonaut. Or, when I was about 8 or 9, I thought I wanted to be a chess player. And the thing that sort of made me decide, yep, I definitely want to go into chess was, back in I think 1993, the World Chess Championships, so Garry Kasparov was the big boss man of the chess world.
Yeah.
And there was Nigel Short, an English chap, who sort of was rising up the ascendancy. I think he was possibly one of the youngest grandmasters at the time. He was invited to take part in a World Chess Championship against Garry Kasparov in London. And it was broadcast on, I think, Channel 4 in the UK. And I vaguely recall Carol Vorderman, who was a former numbers lady on Countdown, being one of the presenters. But they would have chess on television. And I'd come back from school, and my dad would have bought magazines, clippings, newspaper reviews. And my brother and I would sit there watching the chess glued, and we'd get our chessboard, play along, discuss possible moves. So for me, it's like either chess or being a cosmonaut. There are two things that I was really interested in. Having Davey there, if I was an only child or had younger siblings, I don't know whether that would have been the same interest, but because he had those interests, it's sort of like almost like, not one-upmanship, that's a bit unfair saying like I want to beat him, but we would be sort of collaboratively competitive with each other in both those fields.
Now, what kind of school were you going to at this point? Were you going to like, a challenging school if you were living in a part of London that, wasn't flush with cash?
East Ham, Newham, to be fair, it's still quite a deprived area in terms of the UK big picture, but students nowadays, they can academically flourish if they want to. Back then, the reality was it was very difficult for students to succeed, partly because back then East London was was written off. One thing I would say is that while the area was very tough, the primary school and secondary state school that I went to were fine. They were okay. If you wanted to work, you could do. If I'd gone to the school on the other side of the road, it would have been horrendous. But again, big picture, was it good compared to other schools nationally? Probably not. With my family, my dad in particular, we never tried to blame the school. So if, for example, I wasn't doing well in geography, or my PE was underperforming, or when I was trying to learn the Indian flute and it was all a disaster, we wouldn't look to blame the teachers or say, Mr. Teacher, Bobby's not performing. What can you do? It would always be a case of we'd go home and say, my dad would say, what can we do, Bobby, to help you with your again, PE is an example, physical education. I wasn't doing so well at running races, and I was like, Dad, I really want to win running races in school. So my dad and I, we'd go to the park and we'd practice, we'd train. We'd go there, set up cones, do 50 meters, 70 meters, 80 meters, and we'd practice penalties, we'd practice football. So again, the idea of with practice, you can improve in most things. And again, eventually I made the school football team. I became one of the quickest in the playground. And my teacher would say, Bobby, you seem to be quite gifted at sport. I'm like, no. Not gifted at sport. I've just gone and practiced a bit. I've gone and practiced on my sprinting with my dad in the playground. So again, it was a case of, even if the schools were disadvantaged, relatively speaking, we'd always use it as an opportunity to try to say, don't blame the school. Do something in yourself to improve your lot, as it were.
Pull yourself up by the bootstraps sort of philosophy.
Yeah, I would say that.
Having said that, I read that you ended up going to the poshest of all posh schools. How did this happen?
Oh, yeah. So when I was 15, 16, so doing well, conventionally academic, coming top of my year. And I remember, if in any subject, if I ever came second, there'd be an inquest, not with my dad, but with myself. I'd go back home and go, how did I come second? How did I drop 1%? I was a bit tough on myself. If I ever have children, I will tell my child, it's okay not to get 100%. It's okay not to come top all the time. Because I think I put a bit of pressure on myself to always be the top in every subject. When I was 15... my family used to read the Times newspaper. I normally start off with the back section, the sport, read about West Ham losing, which they often did. And then there was an ad section. I saw this ad that said, "Are you a bright boy?" I'm like, yeah, that sounds like me. Are you from a state school? So I'd say non-fee paying school. That's me. Would you like a life-changing experience? Doesn't sound like a bad idea. Apply to Eton College. I'm like, Eton College? I think isn't that really famous school?
Yeah.
So I remember I cut out this little coupon, as it were, put my name, my address. I remember getting a brown envelope, self-addressed envelope, running to the post box, posting it, and not thinking much of it.
Did you discuss this with your parents? Did you say, Dad, I'm gonna send in for this? Or?
No, I didn't. I think I did at the time. Because I think it was just for an application form. So I just went there, did it myself. Right. And then a couple of weeks later, we got this really fancy brochure, really laminated Eton prospectus that showed off their school, playing grounds. And again, my secondary state school, which is a good one for East London, but we didn't have any playing field. So we'd had to go to a local park to play our sports. When I saw Eton's, my God, there were 20 football pitches and swimming pools and golf courses. And I was telling and then when we got the prospectus, Dad, I want to apply to this place. And he was like, okay, we'll apply there. But again, this has always been our attitude. I didn't expect to get Eton scholarship, but my thought was, in the process of applying, in the process of trying to prepare for the scholarship, the aptitude tests and the interviews, etc., I'd become a better academic. So even if I didn't get the scholarship, it would be fine, because it would mean that I'd have raised my game. And that's what ultimately...
It's such a mature attitude for a boy.
Yeah, I was a bit of a strange child in the sense of... I think having a brother that was disabled when you're young and realising that you can't take things for granted does change your perspectives. I think had Davey just been a regular boy that was brighter than me, I might have been like, oh, Davey's annoying, he's just smart. Whereas actually growing up in that environment actually changes who you are. So again, applying to Eton, I went there for the open day and I was like, oh my God, thinking about this place at the time, 18 prime ministers. And it's unfortunate, they've had 2 more prime ministers since then that have not been brilliant for Britain.
Bobby, perhaps for our listeners from outside the UK, you can just give a quick executive summary of what Eton is, because Eton may be a name they've heard of, but they might not realise this is kind of, this is the super posh school where all the royal family goes, and like you say, almost all the prime ministers come from there, and you have to wear fancy uniforms and suits and outfits and things, don't you? Sort of paint the picture of Eton for us.
So let's go back to 1440, and I think I better get sorry.
Oh no, I'm getting
no. You're gonna get executive summary here. There you go. So 1440, okay. Henry VI was given a foundation, a bunch of some income, and he set up a school for poor scholars. So there are about 50 to 70 poor scholars from the surrounding area of Windsor. So Windsor is famous for Windsor Castle, which is the Queen's main home apart from Buckingham Palace. So originally it was a home for poor scholars. But over time, it became a place for the elites of the country, to the point where the characters such as James Bond, Captain Hook. Do you know Captain Hook is from Eton?
No.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Captain Hook, if you ever watch any film versions of him, you'll see him with a tattoo. And the tattoo is the school's crest. It's had 18 prime ministers, and more recently Prince William, Prince Harry. And actually, Prince Harry was not a friend, but you know those people at school that like you like nod at and you'll sort of go, yeah, hi, how are you? He was an acquaintance of mine. He was a year below me at school. So again, 18 prime ministers, multiple members of various royal families across the world.
Yeah.
And it depends on your perspective. I had an amazing time, but it can be seen as a sign of extreme elitism. But I think the school, personally, has actually done a lot of great work in the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years to be more inclusive. Like, in fact, there are some sixth forms in my schools that help kids apply before college or university that have been set up by Eton. So they are definitely giving back, supporting other people. But historically, the connotations of Eton perhaps weren't so positive. But yeah, it is probably the most famous boarding school in the world, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of many other ones.
I can't think of a more famous one. Bobby, what did your parents think when you got in? I mean, you've already given away the ending. You did get the scholarship.
Sorry, that was a bad story.
What did your parents think when that offer came through? That must have, like, for someone in East Ham.
Oh, yeah, it's astonishing. So I remember the day I got the offer. So I remember the interviews, they went really well. I was very happy. But I thought if I get it, great, I'll be happy. If I don't, life will move on. I was walking back from school along my road, and my dad and my youngest brother were heading towards me and heading off into town. And at that time, I was expecting the letter to come through at some stage. And then my dad was waving a piece of paper in his hand. You got it, you got it. I was like, oh my God. And I was like, Dad, get some...
What, he opened your mail?
He had. Cheeky. Again, I never questioned that to this day. Why did he open it? I've never thought about that, but he obviously did. Yeah, he was waving it, and then I was like, God, Dad, get some KFC, some Kentucky Fried Chicken. Let's celebrate.
Oh, that makes it all worthwhile.
We got a bargain bucket after he came back with my youngest brother.
Bargain bucket when you got into Eton.
Yeah, I know. Oh God. My first day at Eton when I turned up. Because again, in East London, I tell you what's cool back then. Reebok, Adidas, Nike, Kappa, all the sort of Elise, all these sports brands. And I thought, I'm going to wear my finest Adidas and Nike. And I turned up day one to Eton wearing this purple Nike top with Reebok trousers and Reebok classic trainers and a really cool baseball cap. And I thought, like, I'm the boss. I'm from East London. And I looked at everyone else like, they're all wearing Ralph Lauren and really smart shirts. I'm like, I look like some sort of gangster, which I definitely wasn't.
Aside from your clothing, though, I was going to ask, were there many other boys that looked like you at Eton?
Not back then, because I joined in the year 2000. And when I joined, again, Eton's changed over the last 20 years. Subsequently, two of my younger siblings did go to Eton on a scholarship and has become more diverse. But back then, when I joined, so the way it works, you live in a boarding house with 50 other boys, 10 from each year group. So 10 who are age 14, 10 who are age 15, 16, all the way up to 18. So 10 times 5 is 50. About 25 boarding houses. And in my boarding house, I was the only non-upper middle class white boy. So when a lot of the boys, in fact, I remember when they saw my name on the scholarship list, Bobby Seagull, one guy thought we're going to get like a 6'4" strapping West Indian fast bowler, and then they saw a 5'5" Indian spin bowler, and they were devastated. They already had a spin bowler of their own.
Right. This is cricket terminology.
Cricket. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, cricket.
Yeah. So. How did you feel about that, Bobby? You seem to me like someone who doesn't get very affected by that. Or did it affect you being like, surrounded by a whole boarding house of white boys?
I think if you ask someone as an adult, even if you ask me as an adult, I'd definitely be cognizant. Ooh, I look different to people here. But going as a 16-year-old with a bit of naivety and not really thinking deeply in that particular way about the geopolitics of why is there the only brown person in this particular boarding house. I went there as someone that loved football, eating Haagen-Dazs, listening to S Club 7 music and Robbie Williams. And I found commonalities with boys in that way. So boys would be like, oh, Bobby, we're going off to play football. Do you want to join us? Oh, Bobby, we're going to go and have a genuinely big Haagen-Dazs feast. We'd go off to the shop and buy like tubs of Haagen-Dazs till we felt sick. And so boys treated me like a boy. And again, of course, you'd realise that at half term when you would go back to East London on the train, and then they're off to like, I don't know, some fancy chalet for a nice break, and you're like, okay, they do have a different lifestyle to me. But in terms of as a human connection, you were just a 16-year-old, 15-year-old boy like they were.
Yeah. How did you perform academically? Were you still, like, kicking goals?
So initially, interesting, when I first joined, again, I'd gone from being the top student, not just in my school, but in my borough. So like 30, 40 schools, the top student there.
Yeah.
And thinking, initially I thought, it would be fine. I'd immediately get to the top of the school. But actually, when I first joined, I found that students were... I don't know whether they were brighter or not because you come from different academic backgrounds, but they were definitely further ahead of the curve than me because there would have been students there who would have been smashing the maths Olympiad type problems. They would have been like thinking about Cambridge and Trinity Cambridge already, and I was like a little bit behind them. So initially when I joined, it took a little bit while to find my feet, but interestingly, so maths eventually I did find my feet, eventually moved up to the top set and was right near the top. But initially when I started, the subject that really got my sort of peers' interest was I came top in history. And again, when you think about stuff that Eton contributes towards, especially at university level, maths and stuff, they are good. They produce good mathematicians, but it's their arts that they tend to outperform. And then when I came top in history, I was like, wow, how did I come top in history? So initially when I was thinking about the university process, my peers, my housemaster would say, Bobby, you should definitely apply to do history at Oxbridge because that's his strength. But for me, maths and numbers, maybe partly because of my Indian background, that's where I always felt my affinity. That's where I felt like I need to be investing my time and my efforts towards.
Bobby, why do you think you were so good at history then? What was it about you that gave you an aptitude for that?
I think actually, if we cast our mind back to like 20 minutes back, we were talking about East Ham Library. And again, when you're in a library, we did read books about maths and science, but reading books rather than sitting and doing problems is more conducive to learning about the world, learning about history. So again, when you learn about mathematicians, learn about scientists, I learn about Euler, Ramanujan, Newton, but you learn about them in a historical context. You're not going to be sitting there in a library, I mean, you can do, but working out calculations. So there's the history of the world that I think first appealed to me. So I think it's that, with history, it's about being able to make connections with different again, even though we studied 19th century history in France, I knew about the development of France, the 1600s, the 1500s. So I was able to bring in prior knowledge. So I think it was the reading in the libraries that made my history knowledge stand out beyond just the syllabus that we were studying. So that's why I think initially you could say if you saw 16-year-old, 17-year-old Bobby, you'd think that's his sort of natural inclination for the future.
Just a quick break to thank Brilliant for sponsoring this episode. Brilliant's a hugely impressive online collection of interactive courses covering all sorts of topics, from probability to calculus, from neural networks to cryptocurrency. All the courses are meticulously designed by people who really love learning. I've met some of the Brilliant people. They're all so passionate about education, about making us smarter. You can really tell when you look through their courses. To check it all out, go to brilliant.org/numberphile. Using the /numberphile will let them know you came from here and give you 20% off a premium subscription if you decide to sign up. By the way, you can also give a Brilliant subscription as a gift to someone else, which I think is a really clever present. That's brilliant.org/numberphile. Seriously, folks, check it out. It's not only smart and clever, it's really good fun. Now, Bobby, in this mighty tome you sent me about the not-so-brief history of Bobby, I think my favourite sentence, or the one that stuck out to me that I really want to hear about, is how you ended up choosing where to go to university to start with.
Oh my God.
It seems like an interesting story to me. Tell me about how you decided where you would go to university.
Oh God, I actually had to have a chat with my brother about this to make sure that I not done him a disservice, because there was definitely an argument involved, and that we can what the argument was, we're not sure. So Davey, again, so he's definitely a critical part of the story, because he, till the age of 14, 15, didn't go to a normal school. He went to a school called Elizabeth Fry that helps students with, I'm not sure the politically correct terms, but physical impairments. But that school got burned down. And in a bizarre way, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to my family, because it got burned down, Davey was forced to go to a normal school. And he couldn't join my state school because there was no wheelchair accessibility to the science department. So if he joined my school, he wouldn't have been able to do science or geography. And it's like, no, you can't do that. So he had to go to another school, which is actually at the time, I think literally in the bottom 3 in the entire country. In the UK. And he joined that school.
But with good wheelchair access.
Yeah, they had wheelchair access everywhere. You got lifts up and down. To be honest, the school they were good for students with sort of special needs, but they weren't good for students academically thriving. But Davey, he went there, and initially as he was in set 9, set 10, he didn't have the conventional academic capabilities, but every week he'd rise up, they move him up a set, move him up, and eventually became top of the school, went to sixth form, got the top marks in A-levels in maths and computer science, and then went did maths at Trinity College, Cambridge, which I think in the UK is the most prestigious university and college to do maths for undergrad level. So he was there.
I mean, that's remarkable in itself, isn't it? Just for 1 second. Like, Davey's gone from being in this school where he's just not getting a chance. It burns down. And now he's doing maths at Trinity at Cambridge, which is like Top Gun for mathematics.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think one thing that marks my family is that as a teacher, I try and encourage my students at the same, is an attitude of you just push for the best that you can. And if you don't reach it, fine. But don't let others put a limit on your ability. I remember when Davey was thinking about university, there were a couple of teachers, even some family friends who knew about university, saying, Cambridge, don't bother, Davey. Even Trinity, if you're going to Cambridge, Trinity's a bit of a mad choice. But Davey's I've seen Newton went there, Van Meningen went there, I want to give myself a chance. So again, that attitude of I'm going to aim for the top. If I miss it, fine.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give myself a shot. So Davey did that and went to Trinity. And at the time I was thinking, Davey, I sort of thought I wanted to go to Trinity, but now you're at Trinity. Okay, and I visited Davey, and I was thinking, Cambridge is definitely the place I want to go because that's where you do mathematics. And I had a look around, went for an open day. I went to Oxford and Cambridge for an open day, went to Cambridge first, and I looked at Trinity, but I thought I can't be the same college as my brother. Even though I think they had 40 to 50 places per maths. So there's 250 undergrads each year, and maths was about 20% of the intake. But I just thought, we'll be cramping each other's styles. I don't want to be just hanging out with Davey's friends. As cool as Davey was. Davey actually was quite cool. But I thought we needed separate...
You kind of thought you needed to have a bit of distance from him.
A little bit, yeah, but not too much distance. So I thought, what's the second best college in Cambridge at the time? It was St. John's. It was just across the road. They had a bit of, friendly rivalry. So I thought, okay, I'm going to St. John's. But in the summer of 2001, so in another life, Bobby Jose or Bobby Seagull is a St. John's maths guy. But Davey and I had an argument about something. And honestly, Brady, I cannot tell you what it was about. Most likely, football. Because I'm a West Ham fan. Davey's a Tottenham Hotspur fan. And if anyone knows anything about English football, West Ham doesn't like Tottenham. To be honest, West Ham's insignificant. We're not a big club compared to them. But we had a bit of beef. That's the word we say in East London. Beef is an argument about football. And then it was petty, honestly. It was petty. And at the end, it was I'm not going to Cambridge. I'm going somewhere else. I don't want to be near you, Davey. I'm going to go to...
Because of a fight about football?
Yes, legitimately. I don't know why. Maybe finally the hormones are kicking in. I was I'm going to Oxford.
So it was just like a little fit of pique, sort of,
Literal 17-year-old boy having a hissy fit. And I didn't have many hissy fits in my life, but that was definitely one.
This seems like something that your dad wouldn't have let go, though.
See, this is the interesting thing. With our dad, while he encouraged us and gave us the right environment to learn, rarely would he say, this is what you must do. This is what you should do. It's here are the options. Yeah. An Indian family... who are academically interested in studying hard. One of the things is none of us in our family did chemistry. None of us became doctors. And if you go to traditional Indian families in Britain, or maybe throughout the world, that have done well academically, it's likely that someone will become a doctor because that's a sort of Indian thing to do. Whereas in my family, our dad always said, you do what you want to do. If you're interested in music, if you're interested in sport, you take that up. And again, with the Cambridge decision, obviously he had to sort of deal with the fight first. They need to resolve that. But once the fight's done, if you want to go to Oxford, we'll go and have a look at Oxford.
Yeah.
Again, we looked at Oxford. I'll be honest, at first, the department back then, it's quite a beautiful department now, but back then it was a horrible concrete bunker. I was this is not really beautiful department. But I thought, alternative is, I'm next to Davey, and I've had a big fight with this guy. I'm no, I'm going to Oxford. It's funny, so Davey and I get on like a house on fire.
Not that going to Oxford to do mathematics is a terrible failure in life, but it's such a funny it's so funny that...
Sliding doors. Had I not picked up the Times newspaper that day to read about a possible West Ham Tottenham transfer, whatever it may have been, I may have ended up with Davey at Cambridge.
So you think it was even about transfers of players and politics of football? There was no personal aspect to it at all.
No, it was not personal at all. In fact, that's one of the things that I've learned, again, even as an adult, I never make arguments personal. Like, I think you should never attack the person. Like, don't attack their character traits, because then you're getting low. Attack their argument, attack what they say, but not the person. And even in our family, if there is an argument, I'm not going to say,
Sounds like you took this pretty personally, though, because you decided to go to a whole other city.
It's weird. It's so weird, because I still can't understand. I wish we had like Facebook or Snapchat or something back, because, there would have been some sort of record or email. There's no record audit trail of this argument. But again, I spoke to Davey about this thing. What was it about? I know it was about football, and he was like saying, Bobby, honestly, it's probably the lamest argument ever. And it would have been about football. Football was the thing that we'd argue about. But I don't know why it made me want to change university. Pettiness. Petty Bobby.
Classic.
Bobby was very petty.
Classic. Now, so you're at Oxford, and it sounds like this is the first time that suddenly things change a bit.
Yeah, so again, I had a gap year before I went to Oxford. Again, I applied with a gap year, which is harder to get in theory because the university's almost got to give up a place for a year's time. I worked in the city as an accountant for KPMG for 9 months. Did youth work in Edinburgh, helping young people. Again, education's always been important to me. Started at Oxford, and then when I went to Oxford, like again at Eton, you had like a really strong pastoral network. You got a housemaster, a dame, so almost like father, mother figures, just keeping the eye on you. As Oxford's like, you do what you want. You got freshest fare, you got alcohol. I've never really drunk anything before. You got all these societies. You can take part in debating, sport. You can go to societies. You can go to other people's lectures. You can do volunteer teaching. You can take part in college politics. And my mind is blown. Like, I was like, wow, this is like. Have you seen Pinocchio before, the cartoon?
I have not, no.
Oh, okay. In Pinocchio, there's a scene where he goes with a character called Lamptey. So Jiminy Cricket's a little good guy saying, Pinocchio, we got to be a good boy, and then one day you'll be made, you'll be converted from wood to a real boy. But Pinocchio gets led astray because he goes to this island with Lamptey, and this island is it's called Pleasure Island, where there's so many amazing things to do. And also, like when I went to Oxford that 1 year, I just had but people often ask me, like, we'll come to did I have a good time in Oxford? I had a great time.
Yeah.
I met some amazing friends. I did volunteer teaching. I went to lectures on Shakespeare. I was a captain of a croquet team. And one cool thing is I became like the agony aunt or uncle for students. If people had relationship issues or issues with managing their time, they'd come to Bobby, and I'd go walking around the quad in my college, Lady Mark Hall, and talk to them. Again, like I had an amazing time. But I think I had too much of an amazing time, and I sort of forgot what the point of university is, the primary purpose of university. Yeah. What do you think the primary purpose of university is, Brady?
Well, that's a can of worms. I'm not sure I want to open,
isn't it? It is a can of worms.
But let's say it's it's to get a deeper knowledge, a deep expertise in the area that you may end up pursuing later in life is one idealistic version of it.
That's I like that. Yeah, deeper knowledge. And again, for me, it would have been I love maths. I've enjoyed the maths since a young age, the problem solving aspects, etc. And I'm at a great university. To be honest, I quite enjoyed the subject, quite enjoyed the work. But I just didn't do enough of it. Simple as that. Like, if there's instead of doing a problem sheet, you're spending a few days on it, I would rush in a couple of hours before the tutorial. And over time, from starting term one as someone that looked like a first candidate to the second term, like first 2-1, second to third term, 2-1, 2-2. And then by the end, you're looking like you're going to be a candidate that's absolutely not going to get a 2-1. And this is the reality of Oxford. Or UK, at the time my ambition still was to get into banking. I wanted to be an investment banker. Again, I nowadays have moral qualms. If you're good at maths, you should pursue mathematics. You shouldn't just go into not sell out careers, but you shouldn't just go into the world of finance. But I thought at the time, I grew up in not poverty, but I grew up in challenging financial circumstances. So I thought I'd love to earn money so I can, support my family, support them financially. So I wanted to get into banking, but banking was very tough in terms of you needed a quantitative degree, probably maths, maybe economics, but you definitely need, ideally a first. With a 2-1 would be fine. 2-2 or anything below, even if it's a Trinity Cambridge and you get 59.9, 2-2 means you're pretty much getting cut out. And that was where I was at the end of my first year.
So for people listening outside the UK, a first is like the top mark you'll get on your degree.
First is the alpha, the top mark you can get at a university, which is meant to be the creme de la creme. But if you're applying for sort of lucrative graduate jobs like investment banking, you pretty much need that. 2-1s are regarded as like good, you got a good degree and you can move on. Yeah. And most graduate jobs require that. And 2-2 is getting to the point where it's a second-class degree, it's fine, but the reality is you almost have to go and do a master's or a PhD to make up for it.
Right.
And at that stage, in my first year, I was a 2-2 candidate at best. And when I was thinking about the summer, applying for banking jobs, even when I was applying in the summer of my year at Oxford, I wasn't getting into the banking schemes. They were just like, I'd get rejected start off, because if I was predicted a 2-2, they didn't care about my story, the fact that I've had I'd taken myself from a state school background to Eton and gone to Oxford and had this range of interests. They're like, you're getting a 2-2, mate. You're not getting a banking job.
Yeah.
I remember at the start of my second year, this is at the end of the summer, and I was thinking about my career, where I wanted to go. I mean, there's a few days, literally, I was sitting there like monk-like, writing down probably tomes of papers about my life and what I wanted to do. And I was thinking, I still want to get into banking, but if I go to Oxford, and the nature of maths is you can pull it back. I still could have pulled it back to a 2-1 first by third year, but by that stage, it would have been too late for my banking, because you've got to apply for jobs at the start of your internship, at the start of your second year. And if you don't get an internship, you can't apply for grad jobs. Again, it's a bit sad because it's driven by a job requirement rather than the subject. And then I made a decision, like, I'm not going to go back to Oxford because I'm not going to get that 2-1 at this rate. I definitely won't get the banking job. But by this stage, university's already started. It was like, I think it was like most other terms, because I think Oxford, we got short terms like Cambridge, 8 weeks, whereas other unis had started. And it was like, it's too late to go to any other uni because, London School of Economics, Imperial, they've already been a week into term. I can go back to Oxford, but I wouldn't get that banking job. And I remember looking at university going, what universities would still accept people at this late stage? And at the time, I looked up a university called Royal Holloway. And at the time, I hadn't heard of it even. But they were part of the University of London, so near enough to London, so I could apply for banking jobs. I don't cry often in my life. I'm quite a strong guy, resilient. But I remember having tears before having to tell my mum, actually, like, Mum, I'm not going back to Oxford. And Mum's like, Bobby, this is a joke. And she's like in a sort of half Indian, half English. Bobby, you're joking. You're joking. It's a good joke, yeah. I'm like, no, it's not a joke. And she's like, yeah, it's a nice joke, Bobby. Okay, calm down. Nice joke. I'm like, no, it's not a joke, Mom. I'm not going back to Oxford. And I remember, like, on my deathbed, I look back at moments in my life where you could feel like, you felt all the emotion. I felt that then. I was like, I'd worked so hard to get to Oxford. I've taken myself from a difficult council estate to Eton to Oxford. And now I'm not throwing it away, but I'm just like, I'm making a decision to abandon that. And in a bizarre way, I think that was probably the toughest decision of my life, but also is one of the decisions in my life in terms of professional decision making that's made me look back and think, you were able to face something as difficult as that, making a very mature decision at the age of 19, 20 to leave Oxford for what you thought would be the best way for your career. I love this story because people often meet me now and they go, Bobby, man, you're this university challenge legend. You're a really smart guy. You're doing all those maths things. Life's been easy for you and you've never had to encounter difficulty. I'm like, no. I've fallen off my horse. I was at Oxford, you know that? They're like, what? You're at Oxford? And I didn't graduate from Oxford.
You're a university dropout.
That's what I am. That's what it is.
So the thinking here, Bobby, is going to Royal Holloway is because you need a reboot, basically. You need a fresh start. Otherwise, you feel like you're not going to get where you need to be.
Exactly. Like, I'm not going to, again, the point of university, while I love maths, the point of university was not to become a mathematician, but was to get a quantitative job. Would have been in banking as a trader, and that was not going to happen with the 2-2 at Oxford to the best of my will. So I went to Royal Holloway, and in the end, I think that proved the making of me because it made me, like, I've always been a humble, again, I think humility is not innate. I think humility is a skill you pick up because it can be easy. There are times in my life where my ego gets suddenly a little bit large, and then people in my family, my brother, my cousins, my close friends will be like, oh, Bobby, don't get too big for yourself. That, again, taught me to learn to be humble again because before that, I would have probably been maybe like 19-year-old thinking, you got to have an Oxbridge degree, otherwise, is it really worth anything? But after I was actually thinking, university is not just about Oxbridge, it's about, lots of other universities. In fact, some people, university may not be the right option for them.
Yeah. So
it definitely gave me a greater sense of awareness of people in general, rather than just thinking about the elite who end up at Oxbridge and things like that.
I can imagine like it's a bit of a dent to your ego at this stage, because obviously, you've been having so many victories in life. Did you spin it to your family and friends as, just Oxford's not for me and I want to be a change of surroundings? Or were you honest and were you saying, look, I've mucked it up. I blew it. I didn't. I took my eye off the ball, and this is the only way I can fix it. Or how were you spinning it at the time, as opposed to how you tell it now?
To be honest, it's not too dissimilar from back then. I remember writing to my friends when I was leaving at Oxford, and just telling them that I'd just not put in the work. Simple as that. And I just put my hand on my chest and said, I messed up. I remember getting an email from my tutor saying, you can't cry over it. Just look at what the next option. I just put my hand up and said I messed up. again, even thinking back it now, like it brings back the emotions, because I really think about obviously I think about like the steps that I took, but I never think back. I never put myself back in the position in fact, right now, I'm thinking about sitting on my bed, telling my mum when she came round. And yeah, it's definitely, I'm not tearing up, but I definitely feel it was an emotional decision, the right one, but I was honest enough to tell people that I had made a mistake. I just didn't study hard enough, and it was simple as that. It wasn't anything else. And I think admitting that I'd made a mistake allowed me to move on reasonably quickly.
I have no idea if you heard the seagulls going crazy in the background.
I did. I was thinking, for a second, I was looking out of my window and I was thinking, is it there? Are my cousins, have my uncles and aunties turned up? No.
I've got some seagulls going crazy outside my window. It's there you go. What can I say? Can we jump in the timeline a bit to something that has to be talked about when talking to you, and that is University Challenge. Mm-hmm. For people who don't know, because obviously University Challenge is a real institution in the UK, but I know a lot of Americans and people around the world are listening. This is a quiz show in the United Kingdom where universities send in teams of 4 students to do sort of general knowledge quizzes against each other. And there's a series of rounds and knockout competitions, and then there's a big final with 2 universities go head to head. And it's quite well known for the questions being difficult, very specialised and things like that. And Bobby, you ended up on this show and became a bit of a cult hero. Can you tell me how that happened?
Yeah, so again, just quickly, literally in 30 seconds, spin through my career. Yep. After Royal Holloway, I got my dream job in investment banking, was a trader, actually traded something called collateralized debt obligations, partly, which was involved in, if you watch the film Big Short, it's partly involved in the financial subprime crisis. It wasn't me though, I was just a junior. Then went to did the same job at Neighbours as a trader, then went to PwC, qualified as a chartered accountant, everything's going hunky-dory. But at PwC, I had an epiphany. I was teaching new young graduates and thought, actually, teaching is for me. I want to become a teacher. So I went to Cambridge, did my teacher training, then did my master's in Cambridge in maths education. And when I was doing my master's, I saw an ad on our college wall, that had a picture of a man called Jeremy Paxman, who's the host of the quiz show Universe Challenge. I applied for my college team. There was a couple of rounds of auditions where, a test in the pub, then individual test, then there's a test on buzzers where you'd answer questions as quickly as possible. I got selected for the team. Then we had to apply to the BBC. Then my college, Emmanuel College in Cambridge, we got selected for University Challenge. Actually, Simon Singh did his PhD at Emmanuel College. So Simon Singh and I are from the same college, just for other Numberphile fans. So I got onto the quiz show. Most people who get on the quiz show University Challenge, it's like a family ritual. They'd watch it with their family from the age of 5 or 6 and always harbored a desire to get on the show. And I think most of my teammates, they'd watched it with their parents, always wanted to get on the program. But bizarrely enough, perhaps because my parents were from India, we never really watched the program. In fact, I'd watched no more than 30 seconds of the show growing up. But again, because of my time in the library, I'd always had a sort of good range of broad knowledge and got made captain of my team. And then when I got on the show, again, I was thinking, okay, so I'm on the quiz show, now I'm going to take it seriously. There's an amateur gentleman, almost like Stephen Fry approach to the show, where you can sort of just turn up and just like record things that you read serendipitously, like Slumdog Millionaire, where you've got a story for every recollection of fact. And that can be the case, but I thought, I'm on the quiz show, I want to win it. Again, I'm competitive, but in a nice way.
And a preparer. I've got the document in front of me to prove that.
So I watched lots of old episodes on YouTube, prepared a massive spreadsheet with all the different topics that turned up, gave it to my team, allocated different subject areas like presidents of the US, Nobel Prize winners, Booker Prize winners, presidents, prime ministers of Britain, all the capitals, all the periodic table elements. We'd systematically allocated topics to people. We'd go and practice quiz shows in the university at Cambridge. We'd religiously practice on a Tuesday night, Thursday night. In fact, there'd be times where I'd be quizzing till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. and have to wake up at 4 to get ready for teaching school the next day. I've got like an ability for it, but I worked very hard towards it. And more than that, not just myself, but making sure my team were prepared. So by the time that we got on the quiz show, we were like, I reckon we can win this thing. So we got better and better as the series progressed. And actually, they pre-record, Brady, the whole show. So people have often asked me, so Bobby, did you go on the show and did you put on like this style and this, this charisma on purpose to try and get attention? And to be honest, absolutely nothing. So I went on the show thinking, I just love to win the quiz show because if I win it, it would mean that in the teaching world, as a maths teacher, I'd get a bit of kudos. Like teachers would go, oh, that's that guy who did the quiz show. And my students would go, that's Mr. Seagull, the one that was on telly. And that was the limit of my ambition.
Hello, time again to rattle the cage of the student mind. An ancient college is playing a more modern university with a place in the second round at stake.
Hello, my name is Bobby Seagull. I'm from East Ham, the London Borough of Newham. I'm studying for a Master's in Education, specialising in maths. But when it was broadcast, so it got broadcast after it was recorded, like 5-6 months after, I ended up going viral on Twitter.
Who, when asked in 1929 whether he considered himself a German or a Jew, replied, I look upon myself as a man. Nationalism is an infantile disease. It is the measles of mankind. The speaker was a physicist born...
Emmanuel Seagull.
Albert Einstein.
Correct. Your bonuses, Emmanuel, are on fictional works set in Shanghai. Japanese spies and opium smuggling in Shanghai feature in The Blue Lotus, published serially in the mid-1930s. Which fictional European reporter is its protagonist?
Tintin, yeah? Tintin.
Correct.
So the BBC did a tweet. Remember that there's a particular match, I think we were playing SOAS. They said, is this the happiest contestant ever?
Yeah.
I was on like radio stations and a few newspapers, and they're all talking about this guy, Bobby Seagull. He's knowledgeable, but also he's like fun, and he talks to his teammates, and the way we discussed answers, we weren't, as normally on the show, Brady, people got quiet and hesitant. Yeah. If they got an answer, they'll discuss it like hushed whispers. Whereas I would discuss it aloud with my team. I'd say to someone on my team, oh, didn't we discuss that on the train on the way here? What was the answer? Okay. And like people sort of enjoyed, like almost like behind the curtain.
The name of the US physicist who explained an effect or scattering that occurs when electromagnetic radiation is scattered by free electrons, followed by the name of the longest river of Canada.
Compton Mackenzie, yeah?
Is that a thing?
Yeah, Compton Mackenzie.
Is it? Because there are lots of other kinds of scattering. So just
which one? Which scattering?
Is there another?
Is there's Rayleigh scattering?
Does anyone know writer?
There's Rayleigh scattering?
Just say Compton.
That's not a name.
Compton scattering. Rayleigh scattering, yeah.
Compton Mackenzie then.
Compton Mackenzie. Sorry, Compton Mackenzie. Compton Mackenzie.
Correct. Yes. Finally, the given name of the usual lead guitarist of the Beatles, followed by the name of the river that reaches the sea between Harwich and Felixstowe. The name of which novelist results?
Is that the Thames?
No.
Felixstowe, no.
Wait, what was
Who's the lead guitarist of the Beatles?
John Lennon?
No, it wasn't John Lennon. George Harrison. George.
Yeah.
George. What's the name of the river? River name. Felixstowe. I thought George Thames.
No. It's in Suffolk. It's going to be like
George Down.
No.
D-Y.
George Dunn. Do you name
John Dunn?
John Dunn.
John Dunn.
John Dunn.
John Dunn. No, it's George Orwell.
And as the series progressed, there was actually another guy which plays an instrumental role in my series. So we did go to Canada, in Oakville, a man called Eric Monkman. And he came from Canada to do a master's in England at Cambridge, a different college called Wolfson. And he was a stronger quiz player than I was. But again, his team, he went viral. People loved him in England. And then as the tournament progressed, people on Twitter were saying, what if these two guys collide?
Yeah.
What if we get a Monkman versus Seagull? And we didn't face off in the final. We played in the semi-final, which I was a bit gutted about.
Yeah.
We faced each other, and the day before our match, we had people like Stephen Fry, Louis Theroux, all saying are you going to be supporting Monkman? Are you going to be supporting Seagull? And it was I think it was the most watched match of Universe Challenge in the 21st century. I think in the 20th century, audiences are much larger, back when TV is much more linear. But it was the most watched match this century, and Twitter melted down. I think it was like hashtag Universe Challenge #1, as it is normally on a Monday, then hashtag Monkmania, then hashtag Monkman, hashtag Seagull, then hashtag Monkman Seagull, and it was bonkers. And what made it even more bonkers, I think it was the tightest semi-final for 13 years, because normally by the semi-final, the couple of teams are distinct, and the other teams are slightly behind, but in our series we had 3 teams that are very good. So the match was going to and fro, and it went down to pretty much the last question, and it was a question in Japanese cinema. And I was thinking, okay, I got 2 guys on my team that are really good at cinema. I sort of think I know the answer, but I can't take a gamble. It was about Kurosawa, and I needed a film called, was it Game of Throne of Blood and Rashomon, but I wasn't too sure. And then there was a buzz. I'm thinking whoever gets this, they win the match to the final. And I was hoping it's my team, and I hear Wolfson Monkman, I don't know, please get it wrong, and it was Rashomon. He got it correct. Yeah. They won the match. They're through the final, and then Paxman gave us a lovely eulogy, as it were, but we lost. Yeah. And I thought, that's the end of my journey. But then BBC called us up that I think the very next day after it was broadcast, or the same night, and said, we'd love to get you on The One Show. And The One Show, if I can explain to forum viewers, is like BBC's magazine show on every night at 7 o'clock. And normally they use it as a platform, and there's like a famous TV actor or a pop star who's introducing a new album or new film. They get them on the show.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're going to get Monkman and Seagull on to talk about University Challenge. And then they brought us on the show, and then from there, just sort of spiraled. We got so many different opportunities.
Yeah.
And again, there's one thing, Brady, I'll tell you about, and our international viewers. University Challenge, every year, there's normally a person or two that goes viral. And that's always the nature of the show.
Yeah.
There's some great contestants.
Usually someone who's a bit quirky, not only super smart, but a bit quirky, and yeah.
They got to have the quirkiness, but I think the difference in this year was, I think it's maybe me being, I was a bit of an older student, as a grad student, I thought, I've got this platform, I changed careers to become a teacher, I'm going to use this platform to talk about mathematics, because people want to talk to me about University Challenge, they want to talk to me about Monkman, they want to talk to me about what was it like being in the studio, what was it like becoming a viral sensation, but I'm only going to talk to them about it if they want to talk to me about math education. So I used that platform to talk about math, talk about learning, talk about education. And then what ended up happening is that my conversations, again, I was on BBC Breakfast, ITV, all the newspapers, half of the interview would be about the quiz show, but the other half would be about my passion for math, my passion for education. And it actually helped me to build a career in media, which is, again, I didn't expect it, I never planned for it, but I've now used it to become a very vocal advocate for math education in particular, but also education in general. So again, I changed careers because I wanted to be a positive influence for maths, but as a teacher, but University Challenge has given me this platform to become a much more influential person within the field of math education in England.
Bobby, let's want to jump around a bit in the timeline again, because there's something I want to understand a bit better. You obviously, you put more than a toe in the water when it came to sort of banking and accountancy and that sort of, that world of finance. Obviously, there's money to be made there. I never think of people who get into teaching as making a lot of money. What changed? What made you say, when you were in with all the banking and the finance, say, I'm gonna turn my back on this, I'm gonna go and convert to become a teacher? Why? What happened?
So it's a great question, Brady. And sometimes people say, Bobby, when you were there, did you find it a soulless, life-destroying place? And to be honest, I didn't. I enjoyed it because you're surrounded by lots of smart people. You're trying to find clever ways of gaming the financial markets, and that's what it sort of is. And I really enjoyed applying it's not necessarily mathematics. There were times of using math, but my applied math, statistics, econometrics in this field. And I did enjoy that. But I've always found a great sense of satisfaction helping other people. Again, in primary school, I would love spending break times helping other kids with their homework. At Eton, I would volunteer every Wednesday helping a local primary school. When I was at Oxford, I would spend, again, every Wednesday afternoon helping a kid with their math homework. When I went to Royal Holloway, I spent a lot of time working on university volunteering strategy. I've always been interested in supporting others, but I always thought I would do that as a side thing. And again, I wanted to get into banking. And again, in my early years, I think my path was to become a managing director, make lots of, millions and millions of dollars. And I think had Lehman not gone bankrupt, I think I would not have adjusted my mindset. Because again, two of my siblings, the number 1 and number 3, entered banking, and they'd actually been in the same firm for, let me work it out, 15 and 9 years respectively. So they've been for 24 years the same firm, not left. And I think I would have been a similar kind of guy. But one, having the dropping out of Oxford, as it were, and Lehman collapsing has made me a bit more adaptive in my thinking. So, okay, that's one part.
Because you were working at Lehman, were you?
Yes, right till the very moment they collapsed. But still, I found a job at Nomura, and then I went to PwC, so still on my way to earning lots of money. I think I would have, but at PwC, and I briefly mentioned it earlier, but I took almost like a mini sabbatical, as it were, and I taught new graduates joining the firm. So these weren't kids, as it were, high school kids, but these were 22-year-old graduates who joined the firm. And I spent 6 to 8 weeks teaching them. And when I was teaching them, Brady, I found I truly came to life. Again, in my normal parts of the firm, when I was in investment banking, when I was in PwC and accounting, I'd always come usually in the top quartile, do really well on the internal assessments. So, traditionally doing well in the firm. But teaching, not just the external like approval, I found I came to life. That was me. Like I would stand there. I don't know whether it's ego or not, but like having to teach people. But like, I know something. I want to help you guys learn it. And I love the feedback. The kids, the adults, the 21-year-old, 22-year-olds who say to me, Bobby, we really love your teaching. We love the way you're so enthusiastic. And again, when I would teach them in a way that, obviously, I've got the knowledge, but I wouldn't do it from a perspective of arrogance. I'd be like, oh, guys, here's what I know. But if you know something better than me, help me understand as well. And I absolutely loved that. And I thought, oh, I'd love to do more of this. And I thought there is a career where you can become like a professional trainer, professional tutor for grads. But I thought, actually, what's the thing that sort of been the thread for my life? I've always enjoyed numbers. I've always enjoyed mathematics, pattern spotting. And I thought, actually, I want to go into teaching. So I took some time away, like almost like a sabbatical away from a sabbatical. And I was supporting a social enterprise that I set up actually. So again, in 2007, when I joined banking, I set up a social enterprise called Oxfizz that supports sixth formers applying to universities. And in fact, in my banking days, I spent every weekend supporting kids who are 15, 16, 17, applying, from tough backgrounds, applying for top universities, Oxford, Cambridge, and other top unis. So I know that I was interested in education. I spent like 6 months with that organization as well, supporting kids. But this is the thing that I did, which was, I don't think anyone has done sort of before. Maybe not ever since, I'm not advised. I spent 6 months going to every single high school and almost every primary school in my borough. And I forensically sort of did a study of all the schools, understanding how was math taught. And I got this amazing book, almost like, again, another mighty tome of mine. Every school I've been to, looking at their lessons, looking at the way they teach, looking at the schools, the demographics, and trying to make sure that if I'm going to make this move as a 30-year-old now into teaching and teaching maths, I need to be 100% certain, because I can't keep on flip-flopping between careers. Because again, I'd been in investment banking as a trader, I've been in chartered accountancy, and again, I set up a social enterprise, but I need to make sure that I get the right career this time. So I went 6 months, and I was like, I'm absolutely convinced that education and math in particular. I say math, interestingly, because I speak to a lot of international colleagues, I always call it math as well, and I call it high school, which is terrible. There should be a maths secondary school. But anyway, I was convinced I wanted to be a math high school teacher. And then again, that's when I went to Cambridge. But again, I think it was the epiphany moment at PwC where I realized that I make a bigger impact. Again, I feel like I'm leaving more of a mark on the world. Because again, I could, get to 90, be an investment banker, earn millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, and great, you've got some money, but you don't really think, when you read accounts of people that are on their deathbed and the things that they've sort of regret in their life, people, as long as, again, you need money so you're comfortable, so you can support your family, you got the odd holiday, but beyond that sort of Western basic needs in the Western country, you don't need millions of dollars. It's your friends, your family, the impact you make on people. And for me, education, again, it transformed my life. Again, growing up in a really challenging council estate, there's some of my friends there that didn't get education beyond 16. They're barely literate, numerate, and they're really struggling in life. And the only difference between me and them is that I had a father that really valued education, a school that gave me a good supportive environment, and the education transformed me. So I wanted to enter a profession where I could make that same impact on other people. And being a teacher, I don't think there's any greater joy than being someone in a class as a teacher, when you see a kid, when you're trying to teach someone Pythagoras theorem or rearranging an equation, and when you suddenly see that child have that light bulb moment. Honestly, there are moments that MasterCard can buy and the moments that they can't. They're the priceless moments. As a human being, as a person, they're the moments that make life worth living, I think. Again, money's nice, but, there's some things that are much more valuable than money. It's impacting others.
So what do you do now? Are you like a 9-to-5 school teacher?
Yeah, so this is my career. Again, University Challenge has slightly changed my path in different ways. So initially, when I was doing University Challenge, my path was I want to become a full-time math teacher, head of a math department, head teacher, then be like, again, I was ambitious still, be like an influential head teacher, with the focus on math education. But after University Challenge, I was a leading head of department with my own department in East London, an acting head, and I thought that's going to be my path. But after University Challenge, I sort of had a raised profile within math and education. So over time, so initially I started doing a part-time doctorate at Cambridge, which I'm still doing sort of part-time, looking at math anxiety, why people are scared about studying mathematics, and the relationship with math and the media, and how the media, I think, often portrays the subject so negatively.
We'll come back to that.
So initially I taught 5 days a week, and then obviously I did studying the doctorate, doing 4 days a week. So now I teach up to a couple of days a week in my local state school. But the rest of the other time, the other 5 days of my week, as it were, I don't really I'm not really a holiday guy, which is probably why I'm single. But the rest of my time is often doing work to do with math propagation, as it were. Be like doing talks at schools, doing projects with the government, or even other things like not just math, but like libraries and reading. And I do a lot of campaigning about, again, in the UK, we've had home learning recently, but a lot of kids haven't had access to laptops or computers. So I've done some campaigning with government, lobbying to trying to get kids to have laptops. So again, maths education predominantly, but a lot of work around the country trying to get governments. I've done some stuff with the OECD. I've started doing talks I've got some, was it in Geneva, Madrid, in Paris. So I'm trying to not just math, but education as well, trying to get people to realize how important education is to a country.
But Bobby, that's, who am I to criticize that? Mm-hmm. What fantastic things to be doing. Mm-hmm. But you were saying that you kind of turned your back on finance and the money and various careers because you wanted that sort of granular one-on-one moments, those human moments. And it feels like you've drifted away from that again now. Now you're all big picture and policy and that sort of thing. Like, how are you balancing those two desires?
Yeah, no, I would say that's a very good question. In fact, people often ask me, Bobby, are you going to go full time into like presenting your TV shows and writing your books and traveling around? And I would say I definitely want to keep doing that. But what gives me value add in that world is that fact that I still teach my own classes. I'm still up to a couple of days a week in East London teaching state school kids, having to deal with behaviour, having to call parents, having to mark papers, trying to bang your head against the wall, trying to teach a kid Pythagoras theorem. Like, come on, yeah, you square both sides. You add up. So I still teach kids on a weekly basis. And no matter how glamorous my career and that sort of media world gets, I'm saying that I'm almost like putting myself out there. I almost will never quit being part-time in a classroom. So I think the value I add is that I'm someone that's still in a classroom but has that connection to the media world. Then I can raise, again, things like in my school when we're having to think about our budget for photocopying or having to cancel our extracurricular trips. I can now go, I've seen that in my class, and then take that higher up to politicians using my media platform. So I think it's the combination of the two. So again, at some stage I might go back to full 5 days a week, but right now I'm in this sweet spot where people in the media in Britain do want to listen to me and my views on education. But I think my views on education are more valued and more valuable because I still teach in a class. So it's somehow, if I can keep both going on as long as possible, that would be the dream for me.
Bobby, you mentioned your research. I know you have some thoughts in general on just public perception of mathematics. How are you feeling about that these days?
I personally, so my research, again, this is a separate question. Can I do a doctorate part-time while I'm doing all these other things? It's going to be I'm going to have a crunch point very soon about that. But my doctorate initially was looking at maths anxiety. So again, maths anxiety is academically termed as that negative emotional response that we feel when encountering maths. And again, it can happen to school children, either doing long division, or adults, whether, they're splitting a restaurant bill. So that visceral fear when dealing with numbers. And I know mathematics is much more than numbers. It's about patterns, shapes, understanding the world. But in terms of day-to-day, for most people, it's about numeracy skills. In the UK, I'm an ambassador for a charity called National Numeracy. And their job is to try and help people, again, it's what it does, it says in the tin, to improve numeracy skills across the UK so that people can go about their day-to-day life feeling confident with numbers. And the question that they asked a stratified sample of people was, can you calculate 5% of £9 or 5% of $9 with or without a calculator? And again, most people listening to the show, they're like, that's not math, that's just a quick arithmetic question. And it is. Again, to work it out mentally, you could work out 10% of £9, which is 900 pennies, that's 90p, and half of that, 5%, is 45p, and it's a really straightforward question. And again, with a calculator, you can just do 5% of £9. But in the UK, and I'm not sure what the stats are for other Western countries, but it's shocking that 1 in 2 adults, 1 in 2, 50% of the population cannot work this out, even with a calculator. And that's not because these adults couldn't do it at school, but something's gone wrong where they've done math till school, GCSE, high school exams, they sort of somehow got through, but they crammed for an exam, which means they don't feel confident with numbers, and they leave school thinking, I got my math qualification, but I hated it, I never want to see it again. And they can't do math as an adult. Almost like infectiously spread it to their kids, and they'll tell their kids, you don't need math, you don't need numeracy, I'm fine, look at me, I can read, that's all you need. And I think there's such a negative attitude toward maths. It's about a subject that's only for geeks, only for a certain kind of person. And I think sometimes as a society, we do the subject a disservice because we say that only a certain kind of person can do math. Again, Jo Bola in America, one of my sort of idols, she's a math professor of education at Stanford. And she actually is a rock star in America in the math education world. But she talks about how people think only a certain kind of person can do math. And of course, if you're trying to become like a Fields medalist or, become one of the very top mathematicians in the world, of course, I'm going to say for those type of people, not hard work alone won't get you there. You probably do need some sort of innate skills to get you to the very top. But to get to the level, Brady, where you can work at 5% of a number, it's got nothing to do with talent. And again, my disclaimer is there's a few people that have dyscalculia.
Yeah.
I think it's like 1 to 3%. And for those people like dyslexia for words, you need a different approach. But for the vast majority of the population, it's their attitude towards maths that hinders them. So my research initially wanted to look into why do people get anxious about maths? And actually getting into the field, the academic field of maths education, I realized there's actually a lot of research already done on that. People have done some great books, great field work on it. And would I be able to add to that field? Maybe yes, in terms of maybe like a small perspective. But the perspective I thought I can add is I'm now working in the field where I'm a class teacher, but I'm also doing a lot of work in the media, trying to help the media develop their attitudes towards maths in a more positive way. Because Brady, when I'm often like on, let's say, on BBC Breakfast or ITV or any of the major broadcasting stations in Britain, they'll introduce me, I've got Bobby Seagull, maths teacher. And the first thing they'll say, Brady, is, oh, Bobby, I hated maths at school. And like, it's this constant narrative that's making like maths sound like it's a useless subject, but also like only a certain kind of person can do math. So then I realized actually for my research, it's more useful if I look at almost at the relationship between maths and the media. Why is it that the media portrays maths in a negative fashion? And then how that negative reputation in the media feeds to narratives in schools where people think only a certain kind of person can do maths. So that's what I want to do. Essentially, what I'd love to do is, like, I can imagine my dream would be to create some sort of charter at the end of my thesis where the media have got to sort of, again, it's a voluntary code, but media will sign this thing where if they're a major broadcaster, major newspaper, even like a major Instagram influencer, they'll not use math for cheap shots. And if they do, they'll explain why. Because I think this constant negative messaging does infiltrate people. Because again, one example I'll use is cigarette smoking. So growing up, it used to be really popular. Loads of naughty kids would smoke cigarettes because you'd see cool ads, Marlboro lights and Formula One cars. But since they got rid of the advertising and now in the media generally, people do not talk about smoking, it's almost like it's not, people still smoke, but the smoking numbers in Western societies have gone down significantly. It's not cool to smoke as it was 20 years ago. So in the same way, in a reverse way, I think with math, we can definitely change the image of the subject. Of course, the cool, the people that love math, the people that are the nerds, the ones that found patterns and found that, it was their thing in school, they're always going to find it. But I think it's about approaching the people that have that negative impression of the subject. Can we reach them? Because if we can reach them, we're going to open up math to many more people. Because I can imagine, again, I listened to you again. By the way, I just wanted to say, on behalf of my students, Numberphile is like, you're a god. They're the kids that love maths. You're doing an amazing service for young people, adults around the world. So just a big thank you. And I listened to James Grime on your podcast, and James Grime talking about at school, he found this thing, he found math, and when he was at university, he found more kids like him who really loved the subject. And I think there could be more James Grimes out there, but we're not finding them because maybe they're in a family where math is viewed very negatively. Maybe they're at a school where the general vibe is math is not for them. And because of that sort of James Grime doesn't discover math. Maybe he goes on to discover computing or discovers being, a great Instagram influencer in physics. I don't know what it is, but something else. But we lose them because there's so much negativity about subjects. So I want to play a part in helping to change attitudes towards mathematics. And obviously, I'm going to start with England, but longer term, I'm 36 now. Hopefully I've got at least another 64 plus years throughout the world. I'd love to be someone that plays a part because we've got a great math community. We've got, Eddie Wu in Australia, you've got John Urschel in the States, Cedric Villani in France. There's so many people out there doing great math work, but I'd love to be someone that helps to get this community to work together, over the course of my life to make math seem a bit more attractive. Again, I've always thought, when I'm dead, Brady, what would I like my influence to be? I'd love my epitaph to say, here lies Bobby Seagull. He made math a little bit less icky. And that's what it's all about, trying to just be a positive influence in the world of math education.
Bobby, you identify a problem, right? And it's easy to, everyone has heard, oh, I hate maths, I hated it at school. The TV presenters you talk about, joking about how they hated maths. And it does have this huge stigma attached to it. No one could deny that. And a stigma that other areas don't have attached to it. But why? Why did maths get it? Why don't people say, oh, God, I hated reading at school? Oh, God, I've never liked words. You never hear that.
You absolutely do not.
Why did numeracy get it and not literacy?
So I think, Brady, it's to do with the way it's taught at school, which, again, there's difficulty about this. But at school, so imagine you've got in the morning, the teacher's like, okay, guys, we've got literacy in the morning. Why am I being a strange primary school teacher? But okay, we've got literacy in the morning, and then we've got numeracy or maths in the afternoon. So in the morning, they're writing a story, and the afternoon, they're doing some problems. Again, in primary school, it's often just, teacher will teach a method, and they'll do some long multiplication. And then at the end of the day, the teacher will come down, checking your work, and they'll look at your little story, and they'll come to you and say, man, this little theoretical little Bobby, go, oh, Bobby, let's look at your story. Okay, you talk about an elephant. I love the way you describe the elephant as like a crazy elephant. That's a nice word, Bobby, crazy. And the story's a bit unrealistic because the elephant's not really going to climb the Empire State Building, Bobby. So maybe look at making a story a bit more realistic. Okay, but good start. And they'll come to my math, and I'm like, okay, the story is okay. They'll come to my maths, and they'll look at my long division, and because I've made a mistake with the lining up the tens and the units, I've got it wrong. The teacher's like, wrong. Bobby, you got it all wrong.
Right.
And actually, with the math, I've just made one mistake because I've lined up the columns incorrectly. And my English, to be honest, I talked about an elephant climbing the Empire State Building. But my view is, I'm okay at reading and writing. I'm all right. But with math, I just can't do it. And I think the nature of teaching at elementary and primary school means that it's quite binary. You either think you can or can't do maths. When the reality is, I just made a mistake with one final bit. And again, I'll refer to Jo Boller again. She talks about how math at elementary school is too much about just being right or wrong. And because of that, young people think they can't do it. And then again, we got these issues about people who have become like media presenters, television presenters, Hollywood stars, sports stars. They all, you listen to the radio, any sort of broadcast opportunity, even YouTube, Instagram, you hear people talking about, I couldn't do math, it was never my thing. And what they do, and what they actually mean is, at primary school, I did math and I made mistakes. And actually, they don't talk about the fact that they got it 70% of the way right, but because they got the final thing wrong, they get an X. And I think the way we teach math at elementary school leads to that perception. Whereas with reading, we never tell someone, oh, you struggled with a couple of words, you can't read. It's just, there's a few words you need to read. So I think it's the way we teach at elementary school needs to be looked at internationally.
Bobby, does it matter if people don't like mathematics, though? Like, as long as the people who need to send the probes to Mars or build the bridges or my accountant, as long as they know how to do mathematics, why does it matter if the person walking the street hates mathematics if they don't need to do it?
I'll tell you why. And this is actually the reason behind this is partly how I address people that tell me, why should we do math? They'll tell me, what's the point of math in school? And of course, there's some bits of maths which I think are important in terms of numeracy, being able to use skills like basic percentages, understanding ratios. So your day-to-day, whether it's working at your tax bill or making sure that you don't burn the turkey or making sure that you plan your journey to work in time. So those bits of numeracy are important. And then people will say to me, Bobby, but the other bits of math, like your number theory, your graph theory, your trigonometries, analytics, analysis, all this sort of thing, they're not necessary, they're not relevant. And I'll go to them and say, what's the point of Shakespeare? What's the point of listening to some rap music? What's the point of looking at a Picasso painting? And they'll say, well, I do it because I enjoy doing it. And I say mathematics can be enjoyable. And also, I think mathematics is an expression of what it means to be human, because humans have delve the greatest depths of their mind to come up with amazing theories that can help us understand our world, understand the way numbers are structured, understand the way primes are distributed. And I think people should be given the chance to be exposed to these things. And again, I think maths is a beautiful thing, and there are lots of people out there that think it's not beautiful. And again, you might say, okay, art, everyone can look at a piece of artwork, whereas to understand complex math is more difficult. Yes, that's true, but I still think we should give people the chance to. There's so many young people that because of maybe parental attitudes, maybe because of their particular teachers that had a negative experience, are saying math is not your thing. I think everyone should have the chance to experience the beauty of mathematics. And the reality is, people are not. And then because of that, it impacts their numeracy, which means that they can't work out 5% of a number, which means that even basic things like their bank statements, working out their budgets, even like cooking, they find those things difficult. So I think it's not just the mathematics, but the day-to-day numeracy. And I think we need to move to a world where everyone's encouraged to see the beauty of maths, and if they're not, at least get the numeracy, because we're not even getting the numeracy bit right at all, Brady.
All right. Sounds fair to me. Well, that's all for today. Our thanks to Bobby for his time and for those extensive preparation notes. For more information and links, check out all the details in the description for this episode. Also, thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this episode. Remember, brilliant.org/Numberphile. And also thanks to the Mathematical Sciences Research Institute in Berkeley, California for its important support of Numberphile. I'm Brady Harron. We'll be back with another podcast sometime pretty soon. In the meantime, it can never hurt to rate and subscribe the podcast in all the usual places. That helps inform all those invisible algorithms that decide the fate of podcasts and videos like ours.